Well, all of us farmers have officially fucked around and we have officially found the fuck out now, guys. I am on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm on the verge of fucking tears. Overnight, all of my fucking help fled. My help, out of fear for their safety, their lives, they fucking fled. And now I am left out here standing in my unharvested carrot field. It is January and I'm in Kansas, and this is when carrot harvest goes in fucking Kansas. This field should be full of workers, but all my fucking workers left. And who the fuck do you think is to blame for that? Every single one of them left. Now I have to by myself try to fill that truck with a load of fucking carrots in one day, and I can't do that, guys. I have to get these fucking carrots to market by next week or my contract is fucking terminated. This is $936,000 worth of carrots right here, and I can't fucking pick them by myself. If they are unharvested, I will get kicked out of that contract and I will get sued by the fucking Planters Loves Carrots company for that fucking money. But I have nobody that'll come fucking pick my carrots. Fuck, we are so fucking cooked, farmers.
Do you ever notice karma always shows up wearing a red hat? Because this is that. A MAGA mom is melting down online after realizing her Make America Great Again vote came with an expiration date on her groceries. Sis is on Snap and Wick, crying that she can't afford baby formula, rent, or food. And her own mother told her, "We voted for this." I mean, how do you clap back to the truth? She's typing paragraphs about how anxious she is, how the shutdown hit her husband's GI Bill, and how her kids are hungry. Meanwhile, the rest of us are watching this in 4K like, girl, weren't you cheering when others were struggling? Now she's mad that her family won't lend her grocery money. The same family that told everyone else to work harder and stop depending on handouts. Funny how bootstraps snap when it's your turn to pull. And the internet is roasting her, and rightfully so. Because every election, people like her vote against their own interests. And when the consequences finally hit home, suddenly, we're struggling. And it's not fair. This is called fuck around and find out, sweetheart. What's unfair is pretending you're above every system you rely on until it stops serving you. MAGA said they didn't want to help people, and now they don't. Enjoy the America you built.
I'm seeing more and more people online saying, well, I voted for Trump, but I didn't vote to lose my job, and I didn't vote for a global trade war, and I didn't vote for Elon Musk to run amok in the government, slashing agencies and cutting jobs, and I didn't vote to see America's allies cast aside. Oh, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course you voted for that. You were perfectly happy to see all that happen as long as it didn't happen to you. And now that the leopard is eating your face, suddenly you've changed your tune. Well, you get no sympathy from me. You voted for that. You wanted that. So you sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. I don't care what happens to you. I just want you to feel the pain that you brought on yourself, because that is the only way you can learn.
What's up, my good people, and welcome back to my channel. So MAGA were promised that DJT would fix everything: jobs, economy, healthcare, inflation. But today, many are waking up to a harsh reality. Farmers are losing their fields, groceries are skyrocketing, rent is unaffordable, and healthcare costs keep rising. And yet while families struggle, billionaires are getting tax breaks. And the question on many minds is, what happened to the America we were promised? Let's have a look.
Oh why do poor white people vote against themselves time and time again? They vote for Trump and the other MAGA politicians only to have every promise broken, prices go up, social supports evaporate. Here's why. First, remember what I talked about recently, the psychological wage of whiteness. That term was coined by W.E. Du Bois to describe poor white folks being paid with social status rather than decent living conditions. They're convinced by the elites that they're better than black folks, better than immigrants, Latinos, LGBTQ folks. They're convinced that being white puts them in the same league as the elites. Of course, the elites know otherwise, but the poor whites buy it because they're grasping at straws. Second, they are convinced that the people they're supposedly better than are the big threat in their lives. Not the rich, not the corporations or the politicians, but immigrants, black folks, welfare queens, LGBTQ, criminals, the usual scapegoats. Third, the elites promise protection to poor white folks. A politician comes along and says, I'll keep those people in their place, or I'll kick them out, or I'll lock them up. Or, more politely, I'll defend your values. They don't say, I'll make your life better. Well, they say it, they just don't mean it. They'll say, I'll make sure they don't get ahead of you. Fourth, they vote for the punishment, not the policy. When a law gets passed that slashes public housing or school funding or food aid, they think, good, that'll stop those lazy freeloaders. And they do some mental gymnastics that make them believe it's worth losing those things for their own families in order to see those problematic black people and immigrants and so forth being punished. It gets to a point where just seeing those guys being punished is reward enough, which is pretty sick, but that's how behavior works. Their housing, schools, and groceries are on the chopping block too, but they blame that on Biden. Always a scapegoat. They get hit by the same policies they were told would punish the others, and they blame the wrong people. The system fails them, but they've been trained to blame the scapegoats, not the cause, which is the rich people, the people they voted for. So they think the problem is still those people, not the fact that they were personally manipulated by the people they voted for. They're basically saying, I'll take the hit as long as you don't help them, or worse, as long as you hurt them. That is the psychological wage Du Bois was talking about, the trade-off between material security for racial status. And that's a crying shame, folks. One share, like, save, and comment shows that you care about white people taking responsibility for racism in America.
After all this talk about Somalians and millions of our taxpayer dollars being wasted, I truly think Americans are fed up at this point. To the point now where they're talking about literally going on a tax strike. Listen, I'm all for it. Because look around you, everything is fraud. Trump's met with Netanyahu already for the 5th time, while we keep sending billions to Ukraine and Israel, and my generation can't buy a house. Like ever. And these boomers will laugh in your face and say, work harder. The GOP would rather raise the retirement age to 70 than just enforce immigration law. And before anyone says anything, I voted for Trump. I supported him. It's about to be the end of 2025, and here's what people are noticing. No high-profile arrests, no mass deportations, Epstein files redacted, crime and inflation is out of control. Americans are told by the president that we don't have talent while H-1B visas are replacing us. Funding wars we didn't vote for. And we get mocked by a country the size of New Jersey in the Middle East daily. We've had Trump for 1 full year in office. So yeah, people are talking about tax strikes. Because taxes are a scam. If you don't pay, they take everything from you, your assets, your freedom, your life. But if you steal millions, if you traffic people, if you commit fraud, nothing happens. Americans are tired of being law-abiding for a country that doesn't enforce its own laws. It doesn't even matter who's in office anymore. Both sides are owned, both sides are playing us, and they're still counting on us to not do anything about it. That's why they're sloppy now, that's why they don't care, and we keep paying taxes to PDFs. Not anymore.
I feel like the past 24 hours has just been a complete nightmare. 104% on imports coming from China. 104%. And that means my small business that I put everything into is fucking done. I quit my corporate job about 1.5 years ago to chase my dreams. I designed and launched a kids fitness brand, and it was going great. I paid fair wages. I built relationships. And then overnight, the cost just more than doubled. My margins were gone. You know, my business doesn't pay for a yacht or a private jet. It pays for our daughter's swim classes. It covers groceries. It helps with babysitters for date nights. This isn't just numbers on a policy sheet. It's real people, real jobs, real families, and now I'm back at square one. So wish me luck.
I'm voting for Trump because he says it like it is. He does not lie. He tells the truth, even if it's a harsh truth. Mr. President, I have a question about the Epstein file.
Quiet, piggy.
I'm voting for Trump because he's already a billionaire. He doesn't need it for the money. I think he'll make me rich too.
I am filing for bankruptcy for the third time.
I voted for Trump because of his Christian values. I'm a Christian and it's important for me that he stands up for my Christian.
You're a star. They let you do it. They let you get away with anything. You know, you can just grab him by the...
I voted for Trump for the economy. It's really important for me to have a president that's standing up for the poor and working class.
We have breaking news. Trump delivered tax breaks to billionaires, cuts to social safety nets, and rising costs for everyday Americans. Experts are currently investigating where exactly the support for the poor was located.
Polls have come out about the economy, and it should come as no surprise that most voters, including quite ardent Trump supporters, are not happy with the way that he is currently handling the economy. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that he very much ran on a platform of affordability for the average everyday American. And by and large, if you're an average everyday American, you are probably not feeling that great about your financial situation. I'm a financial expert. I talk extensively about the K-shaped economy that we're currently in, where typically higher income people that own assets, rich people are feeling really good about the economy, while there's this divergence where the rest of people just feel like they are not getting ahead no matter what they do, beaten down by inflation and stagnant wages, etc. And so again, if you're a politician that is very deliberately running on this affordability agenda, I mean, there's a reason why politicians like Trump and even politicians like Zoran in New York City are getting elected, because they're running on an affordability agenda. If you're promising that and you are absolutely not only not delivering, but kind of not even talking about it anymore, people are going to be pissed. And I think that's why in the past couple of weeks, we've seen Trump kind of try to release this like flurry of policy ideas that are aimed at affordability. And I would argue that a lot of them are misguided. They probably are not going to work the way they're intended. And overall, are kind of almost too little too late. If you think about how expensive groceries have gotten, healthcare premiums, childcare costs, those are three things that very directly impact everyday average Americans, and they are seeing that price over and over again. So it's very top of mind for them. And what I find really interesting about this recent polling is that voters are increasingly blaming Trump, not Biden, for the current state of economy, because that was actually something you saw when Trump first got elected, that he was inheriting this like bad economy from Biden. But now I think a lot of people are placing the blame more squarely on Trump if you think about some of his economic policies like tariffs. And it's just very interesting to see how voter sentiment has shifted quite quickly. I also find it very interesting and confusing that the Trump administration keeps talking about how good the economy is and how well the economy is growing. And technically that is true by some metrics, like GDP is up. But when the average lived experience of a person in America feels like they are struggling, that messaging is not landing. Like, nobody cares about GDP if they can't afford groceries. And this really represents the gap between what economic metrics and headlines are saying and economic reality and how people are actually feeling, like lived experience. And when you are a leader and you are promising to fix that gap and then you don't, people will notice. And that is going to directly lead to consumer spending patterns and other things that we're going to see show up in the coming months.
I think the people who have been impacted the most are the farmers. Our workers are afraid to go to the field because they fear ice raids, so they don't have anybody to harvest their crops. Look at the trade wars with China. It has really impacted their market, and our families are making hard decisions on whether to pay rent or buy groceries, because groceries have skyrocketed at a much higher rate. Supermarkets are seeing prices rise almost every day, Rent keeps on rising, squeezing families tighter than ever. Healthcare, once a promise of security, has become a luxury. Inflation is not just a number on the screen. This is a reality affecting every dinner table, every paycheck, and every household in America. And yet, in the midst of all this, the government decisions seems to favor the ultra-rich over the everyday Americans. People who believed in the promise are now realizing that they were sold a dream that doesn't match the reality. DJT promised relief, He promised jobs would return, inflation would fall, and life would get easier for the working families. Instead, many see the opposite happening, and what was meant to be the economic security feels more like uncertainty. Tax breaks go to billionaires, while struggling families are left with nothing, And this is not just about politics. It is about people's lives being impacted. And now many people are now regretting their votes. People who cheered at rallies, who supported him loudly, are now beginning to question their choices. They are losing hope in the promises that were made. They are noticing how the reality doesn't match the rhetoric, and it is a painful realization for many. And these are not just passing disappointments. These are consequences felt in homes, hospitals, workplaces across the country. What we're witnessing now is not just a political regret. It is a lesson in accountability, because in every election, it brings choices, and every choice has consequences. When promises are made, they carry so much weight, and when they are broken, the impact is felt where it hurt most, in the daily lives of the people who trusted them. And this is a reminder that voters are powerful, and not just in casting ballots, but holding leaders accountable when the reality doesn't match the promises, America deserves leaders who prioritize the people and not just the powerful. A regret may be part of the process, but awareness, action, and accountability can prevent it from repeating itself. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.